Hello, and welcome to another Rangro's unit of the Reek. And today we're taking a look at the T-28E tank. The Soviet Union, after the whole revolution, was in the process of starting their own tank force and building their own tanks. They would really look for the British for inspiration, one of them being the T-26, which was based off the Vickers light tank. The British in 1926 had a secret prototype known as the Vickers Independent, which was this multi-turreted monstrous beast of a tank. Soviet intelligence would find out about this vehicle, and they decided, hey, this is a pretty good idea, let's build something like it. And that's how the T-28 was born. A long, multi-turreted tank with two small machine gun turrets and a 76mm short-barreled gun. Now, we all know in hindsight, multi-turreted tanks were a terrible idea, but you gotta realize during the late 1920s, early 1930s, the idea was that if another war was going to happen, it'd probably be like the First World War, with long trenches and lots of fortified positions. So just having a vehicle with lots of machine guns would seem to be the best course of action. The T-28 would enter service in 1932, meaning that in SD2, this is a Trove-era tank, which is pretty old in tank years. It may look like a rather silly tank, but for the Soviet Union, it was rather revolutionary, pun intended, as it had radios inside of him, had an anti-aircraft machine gun mount, as well, you could argue it's one of the first medium tanks in the world, so I'm not going to die on that hill. Anyway, they would see service during the brief invasion of Poland, and of course during the Winter War. 500 of these vehicles would be produced by 1941. During the Winter War, 200 of them were knocked out. This was due to the fact it only had 30mm of frontal armor. The Soviets would take them back to the factories and upgrade them with 80mm of frontal armor, which increased their survivability by quite a bit, as they were throwing these T-28s against Finnish fortified positions. And the Finns, being the Finns, would actually capture a few of these tanks themselves. It'd mainly be used in reserve or just in the defense, holding fortifications, etc., because it was a pretty outdated tank by the time, but they were still in service in 1944. In-game, the T-28E is a 35-point tank available exclusively to the Finnish Panzer Division, and it has two weapons. So you got a short 76mm gun with AP and high explosive shells. The AP shells are a bit lackluster, with only 70mm of penetration and pretty meh accuracy, and the high explosive shells is pretty standard for a 76mm gun, and it has even worse accuracy than the AP. You only have 6 rounds a minute, so it's a pretty slow firing gun. It's really just used to kill light vehicles and deal a little bit of high explosive suppression. But you have 3 machine guns, not 1, not 2, but 3. Technically 4 if you can't run in the back of the turret, but Eugene doesn't, so we won't. But yeah, 3 machine guns is pretty abnormal, as most tanks in SD2 usually only have 1 or 2 machine guns, so that's pretty cool. Instead of popping up, we're gonna have to pop down, as they've changed the unit statistic cards. So, it has 70mm of frontal armor, strong top armor, 35mm on the side and on the back. It's 29km off-road, 40km on the road, very bad stealth, and very low optic capability. In battle, the T-28 actually surprised me. I've played rotor tanks in War Thunder, and the T-28 in those games is usually absolutely garbage, so my expectations weren't high in ST2. But in ST2, where there's actual infantry units to shoot, this is a decent little infantry support tank. The main thing being is you got 3 machine guns. May not sound to be that crazy having an extra machine gun, but it is. You can really stress out anti-tank guns and infantry units if you manage to get within range pretty quickly with those 3 MGs. And the main cannon isn't too bad. It's still not great by any stretch of the imagination, but for some extra high explosive slinging capabilities at long range, you can't really go wrong. And of course, if anything lightweight comes up close, it can actually do pretty good damage. This is pretty much like a light tank, medium tank spam. You're just kind of throwing close range quarters capabilities and just your lightly armored stuff and infantry units. It's kind of like a worse T-34-76 in a way. For 10 points less, you got a worse gun, but you only got a little bit worse armor. You're slower, but you got an extra machine gun as well. So it's more of the close fire support version of a T-34-76 1943 model. It's actually a pretty fun tank, and you got decent availability. 6 of M&A phase with 1-star veterancy. No point really taking 2-star veterancy. It's still only a 35-point tank. But yeah, you just kind of throw it into forest, which the Finns like fighting in a lot, and it can do some pretty good damage. I highly recommend it, as it's a good A-phase tank to help you out in those initial stages of the match. So yeah, that's the T-28. And well, this has been another Rank Rouge unit of the week. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and as usual, please just take it easy.